A perfect 10 might be gaming's most overrated score. The games that truly stay with you, the ones you reinstall every few years, often scored a 7. Here are 17 7 out of 10 games that deserved far more respect. Assassin's Creed Rogue. Black Flag gets all the attention and it deserves every bit of it. But there's a smaller, scrappier game that carried its best ideas forward and somehow ends up being the easier choice to return to almost every time. Assassin's Creed Rogue is technically the lesser game, smaller in scope, built for hardware already being left behind, carrying none of the spectacle or ambition of its larger sibling. But big, important games come with baggage. They need to reintroduce the world, slowly walk you through mechanics, fill your opening hours with cutscenes establishing stakes before you're ever allowed to actually play. Rogue doesn't do any of that. It assumes you understand how these games work, drops you near the action, and gets moving. The naval combat is there, the open world loop is intact, the progression feels familiar and satisfying, but the pacing is built for someone who just wants to get into it without ceremony. The story is more focused. The whole experience wraps up in a fraction of the time Black Flag demands, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. Not the epic, but the efficient version of an epic. The one you can pick up on a Tuesday evening and feel like you actually got somewhere by the time you put it down. Rogue knows exactly what it is, and it delivers on that every single time.
Incoming ship! Not friendly! Fire! Ready, Captain!
Batman Arkham Origins. The least celebrated game in a beloved series. That's the reputation Batman Arkham Origins carries, and it's not entirely undeserved. It doesn't innovate the way Asylum did, doesn't refine the way City did, and shipped with bugs that range from embarrassing to genuinely game-breaking. But strip all of that away and what's left is a Batman game with the most purely entertaining boss fights in the entire franchise. The Deathstroke encounter alone is worth the price of admission. The assassins deployed across Christmas Eve in Gotham are some of the best designed villain encounters the series ever produced. And the story, grounded, direct, more emotionally anchored than the other entries, is the most Batman the animated series the Arkham games ever managed to feel. There's a specific charm here that the other games don't carry. The city feels more dangerous. The Christmas atmosphere gives the whole experience a tonal distinctiveness that separates it completely from anything else in the franchise. The combat is familiar but solidly satisfying, and several of the locations you're sent to explore are genuinely creative. The bugs are real. The infamous progress blocking glitch some players hit is real, but coming back to Arkham Origins means returning to a game that understood what made Batman interesting at a level that both more technically accomplished entries around it somehow couldn't quite reach. And that counts for more than a review score ever will.
Here we go! My lucky day! Hey!
Resident Evil 3 Remake. Not every great gaming experience needs to be demanding. Not every worthwhile game needs 40 hours of your life before it earns the right to have an ending. Resident Evil 3 Remake understands this in a way that got it criticized and earns it return visits in equal measure. It's shorter than the second game. It's easier. The Nemesis, one of gaming's most iconic threats, is underused in ways that frustrated everyone who remembered the original's relentless tension. And yet, stripped back the way it is, this remake has a momentum the other entries don't quite match. Where Resident Evil 2's remake rewards patience and careful resource management, the third entry is looser, breezy, more focused on throwing set pieces at you and trusting you to handle them with confidence. Jill Valentine moves differently than Leon or Claire. The dodge system adds a responsiveness that makes combat feel distinctly more aggressive and kinetic. The whole thing has a punch to it that never really lets up. You're never waiting for it to get interesting. And for a game that critics dismissed as a glorified expansion, it's remarkable how often it's the one in the series you feel like replaying on a random evening when you want the experience without the commitment. That's not a backhanded compliment. That's a specific kind of value that very few games manage to deliver, and this one delivers it consistently. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed.
Don't let him get away.
Forget being a measured hero of the rebellion. Forget careful lightsaber duels and refined Force philosophy. What if you just wanted to be the most catastrophically overpowered being in the entire Star Wars galaxy? Flinging stormtroopers off the Death Star like they weigh nothing while the scenery crumbles around you? No other Star Wars game has ever been willing to give you that. The Force Unleashed is essentially a power fantasy dropped into a galaxy far, far away, and it commits to that premise with total, gleeful abandon. Starkiller is absurdly powerful, and the game never tries to dial that back. It hands you a physics sandbox and lets you discover exactly what you're capable of within it. The way doors deform when you force them open, the way enemies ragdoll when you hurl them across a room, the way the environment responds to your abilities with technology that was genuinely impressive for its time. It still lands. The level design isn't always inspired. The story takes turns that require a flexible relationship with logic. The controls don't always respond the way you want them to. None of that matters. This is a game about feeling like a god. And on that specific, narrow, completely irresistible metric, nothing else in the Star Wars galaxy has come close. Not before, and not since. You feel it from the very first level and never really stop. Destroy all humans. Some games ask you to be a hero. Some invite you to be a morally complicated anti-hero navigating a broken world. And then some just hand you a death ray and tell you to have fun. The Destroy All Humans series falls enthusiastically into that third category, and if you've never given it a serious chance because it looked too low budget or too juvenile, you're passing up something genuinely special. The first two games are where you want to start. Pure, unapologetic chaos with a sharp comedic bite built around the aesthetic of a 50s sci-fi B-movie that gained sentience and decided to become a video game. You play as Crypto, a Furon alien with a devastating arsenal and absolutely zero interest in subtlety. The entire world is a target. The freedom is the fundamental appeal. In an era where open-world games increasingly restrict what you can actually do in them, destroy all humans feels like a genuine exhale. You are actively encouraged to cause maximum carnage, and the game backs that intent with weapons that remain ridiculous and entertaining to deploy against a population that panics in deeply satisfying ways. The humor is broad, the gameplay is mechanically basic. But basic can be brilliant when the core joy of what the game asks you to do is this consistently and unreasonably fun. These remain some of the most purely entertaining games ever made, and they never got the audience they deserved.
Holy Martians! Commies!
What's an Elvis? Must be a new type of 10-gallon hat. I want to slap an Elvis on my head.
He came from outer space. Commies!
Bring it on.
Give me the shotgun! I gotta kill me a varmint.
I ain't afraid of you, space boy.
Where do you want to go?
Stop right there, pal.
Oh.
Another blasted alien invasion.
Space, baby!
This is my place. You ain't gonna stand.
Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle proved that this character can anchor a genuinely great modern game when someone truly understands what makes him work. But for a very long time, there was nothing. No serious Indiana Jones game that captured what made the character essential. Emperor's Tomb, released in 2003, was the closest thing, imperfect, rough-edged, borrowing liberally from Tomb Raider without apology, but capturing something specific about Indiana Jones that almost nothing else had managed. The decision to make guns scarce and unreliable was smart. Jones works as a brawler first, a gunfighter only by necessity, and the game leans into that by making his fists and his whip the primary tools of survival. The whip mechanics are inventive for their time, and the variety of locations, catacombs, ancient palaces, multiple continents, gives the adventure the globe-trotting energy that defines everything about this character. The lack of checkpoints is genuinely brutal by modern standards. You'll replay stretches you'd rather not, and the frustration is real and legitimate. But none of that has ever killed the pull of returning to this one. Partly nostalgia, partly the recognition that for all its rough edges, this game understood Indiana Jones intuitively, more than almost anything that came before or after until very recently. Not a great game in the technical sense, a genuinely great Indiana Jones experience. And those have always been rarer than they should be.
There he is.
Внимание! He's over here! I'm going to make you eat that whip.
Red Dead Revolver. Before the sweeping tragedy of Red Dead Redemption, before the meticulous world-building of its sequel, there was something louder, wilder, and frankly stranger. A game that Capcom canceled, Rockstar salvaged, and nobody quite knows how to place in the context of the franchise it accidentally started. Red Dead Revolver is an arcadey, cartoonish, over-the-top Western action game that plays more like a fever dream than a coherent narrative experience. The levels are compact, the gunplay is rough, the bosses are theatrical and bizarre in ways that belong to a completely different genre. And all of that is exactly why it works. There's a specific energy in smaller, older, more unashamedly ridiculous games that their bigger and more serious successors simply cannot replicate. Coming back to Red Dead Revolver feels like watching a spaghetti western double feature at 2 in the morning. You know it's not high art and you don't care at all. The score borrows from the great spaghetti western composers with the right brass stabs and electric guitar lines that feel absolutely perfect for every dusty standoff. The whole thing is over almost before it starts, but it leaves you satisfied in the way only a tightly focused, completely unpretentious game can manage. Sometimes you want the epic, and sometimes you want the B-movie version, the one that commits to its ridiculousness without apology and delivers exactly what it promises. The Saboteur. On paper, it sounds like a perfectly generic open-world game wearing a World War II costume. And in the wrong hands, that's exactly what it would have been. But Pandemic Studios made something messier and stranger and more interesting than the premise implied. You play as Sean Devlin, an Irish race car driver turned resistance fighter in Nazi-occupied Paris, and yes, the voice acting is exactly as entertainingly uneven as that description suggests. Strip away the rough edges though, and what's underneath is genuinely clever. The stealth works because disguises actually matter. You can walk through enemy territory, blend into bases, reach the objective without firing a single shot, and the moment your cover breaks, everything escalates with a satisfying panic that makes you feel both powerful and exposed simultaneously. The open-world driving is sharp and enjoyable. The mission variety keeps the pacing moving forward. Blowing up Nazi infrastructure never gets old no matter how many times the game asks you to do it. The Saboteur pulls off a combination almost nobody else attempts. The free-form chaos of Just Cause alongside the methodical planning of Hitman, in a world that's visually striking in ways that have nothing to do with budget. It's rough in places, janky in others, but it's also one of the most underestimated open-world games ever made, and it has never gotten the audience it genuinely deserves.
He's killing everyone!
Dead Island 2. It was announced in 2011, changed developers twice, spent 12 years becoming a punchline while the rest of the industry moved on from zombie games entirely. Dead Island 2 had the worst possible reputation before anyone had ever actually played it, and then it came out in 2023 and turned out to be one of the most purely enjoyable zombie games in years. Not the most ambitious, not the most expansive, but fun. Genuinely, consistently, unpretentiously fun in a way that games from development hell almost never manage to be. What makes it work is that it knows exactly what it is. Rather than competing with the vast open worlds of the Dying Light games, it pulls its scope in tight into smaller, handcrafted zones that feel deliberate rather than padded. The combat is built around weapon modification that gives you enough to play with without overwhelming you. The body deformation tech is extraordinary in the most absurd possible way. Enemies physically deteriorate as you attack them with an accuracy that oscillates between impressive and completely nauseating. And somehow the writing is coherent, actually entertaining in places. The game doesn't overstay its welcome. It knows it's built to be an experience you can finish in a weekend, and it respects that. That restraint is precisely what makes it replayable. It knows its value, and it delivers on it completely every time you go back. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Most movie tie-in games exist to be sold and forgotten. They ship alongside the film, spend a week on shelves, and disappear without a trace. X-Men Origins. Wolverine had every reason to be exactly that, a rushed product built around a film that wasn't well received to begin with. But something happened when Raven Software sat down to make it. They set aside the movie's mess and asked one simpler, better question. What does it actually feel like to be Wolverine? The answer they came up with is still unmatched. The combat isn't technically groundbreaking. The environments are serviceable at best, but that pounce, the moment Wolverine locks onto a target across the room and launches himself through the air to tear them apart, is one of the most viscerally satisfying moves ever put into a video game. And it isn't even the ceiling. The whole game builds on that primal, ferocious energy. Wolverine heals in real time, enemies come apart in brutal fashion, and the whole thing moves at a pace that completely respects your time. No extended cutscenes, no bloated tutorials. You're in the action almost immediately, and the game trusts you to stay there. Short, scrappy, and completely confident about the one thing it does better than anything else. For a game that had every reason to be forgettable, it has proven to be anything but.
Nguka na watu zaidi. Una muda mrefu wa kuishi.
Ace Combat Assault Horizon.
Fills out a flight suit that well.
Ace Combat is a series that treats air combat like a form of poetry. Sweeping alternate world conflicts, operatic music, pilots who speak about flying with the kind of reverence most people reserve for religion. Assault Horizon threw most of that overboard and made something considerably more explosive, considerably more American, and considerably more divisive. It's the Call of Duty of Ace Combat games, and that's simultaneously its central flaw and its guilty appeal. Where the rest of the series rewards the elegance of aerial maneuvering, Assault Horizon throws you into close-range dogfights that feel like being inside a washing machine full of missiles. New gameplay modes, a C-130 ground support, attack helicopter sections, break up the traditional aerial combat in ways the purists rightly criticized, but those modes are genuinely entertaining on their own terms. The whole game has a relentless kinetic energy, barreling through its story at a pace that gives you almost no time to question anything happening on screen. It's loud, brash, and clearly aware that it isn't what longtime fans wanted. The fact that the series recovered and returned to its original identity with Ace Combat 7 makes Assault Horizon easier to appreciate in hindsight. Not a great Ace Combat experience. An entertaining game about blowing things up from an aircraft with enough confidence in its own absurdity to carry you through it and keep it stuck in your head long after.
Let's roast some marshmallows. Good hit on building. Vehicle destroyed.
Anti-air gun destroyed.
Destroyed target.
Razor, this is Warwolf 1. We're coming north with a package hitting the radar sites. We'll be at your position to cover you in 03.
Razor. Roger that, Colonel. Good to hear your voice.
Razor Flight, you have hostiles en route. Warwolf will cover.
Acknowledged, Magic. Vehicle destroyed.
Yes!
Dark Souls 2. Ask any From Software fan which entry is the odd one out, and they'll tell you Dark Souls 2 without hesitation. The movement is heavier, the world design is more disconnected. The bosses don't reach the heights set by what came before or after, and yet there's a passionate, numerous group of players who have spent more hours in Dark Souls 2 than any other entry in the franchise. They're not wrong to love it. What Dark Souls 2 does that no other Souls game quite replicates is embrace a genuine experimental strangeness. It's a messier game, but a more unpredictable one. The systems are more elaborate and more eccentric. The multiplayer mechanics are more creative and more thoroughly exploited by the community that loves them. There are design decisions buried in this game that seem bizarre even now, not because they're unfinished, but because someone made a deliberate, genuinely weird choice and committed to it without ever fully explaining why. The tree that heals you if you strike it enough times, the rooms that seem to exist for no mechanical reason, the areas that feel like they wandered in from a different game and somehow belong anyway. Dark Souls 2 is what happens when a studio is still finding its voice, and the uncertainty produces something more genuinely interesting than a safer, more calculated game might have been. Not the best entry in the franchise, possibly the most fascinating one, and in a series this beloved, that's not nothing. Darksiders II. Nintendo has never licensed the Legend of Zelda formula to anyone, which means that if you want that specific combination, an overworld, interconnected dungeons, a progression system built around tools that open new paths, you're almost entirely at Nintendo's mercy. Unless you found Darksiders, the series built its entire identity around taking that Zelda DNA and transplanting it into a darker, heavier aesthetic soaked in 90s comic book energy. And the second game, where you play as Death himself riding across a fractured world to rescue his brother, is the most fully realized version of that vision. It's the most Zelda-like of the series, with connected overworlds, dungeon design that rewards exploration, and a progression loop that earns its satisfaction through smart item distribution and layered world structure. It doesn't reach the highs of Nintendo's best. The dungeons don't achieve the same elegant creativity. The writing won't win any awards, but with so few games even attempting this space, the consistency of Darksiders 2 is remarkable in itself. The combat is fluid. The world has real personality. Death, as a protagonist, carries a dry, understated charm that makes the journey feel worth taking without demanding too much from the narrative. If you've ever finished a Zelda game and immediately craved more of that exact feeling, this is where you go. Not a replacement, a very good alternative that has never gotten the credit it genuinely deserves. Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. It's 20 years old, it looked dated when it launched. Nobody who has played it multiple times can coherently summarize the plot, including people who've cleared it 5 times. And Dark Messiah of Might and Magic contains a single mechanic so extraordinary that it has outlasted franchises built on far more impressive foundations. You can kick enemies into spikes, into walls, off cliffs, into fire, through windows, and through some perfect combination of the source physics engine and Arkane's barely contained early understanding of player agency, that one action never stops feeling extraordinary. Every encounter becomes a spontaneous physics experiment. Every room becomes a question. What can I use, and how creatively can I use it? The game supports this with a flexible ability system. Stealth, magic, raw combat. None of it especially refined, but all of it feeding into a sandbox where the environment is as much a weapon as anything in your inventory. Dying Light came close to replicating this energy and couldn't quite get there. Nobody else has really tried since. That's how specific and irreplaceable what this game does actually is. The story evaporates from memory the moment the credits roll. The visuals have aged about as well as you'd expect. None of that matters. People return to this game to see what chaos they can engineer in the next corridor with nothing but their boots and a well-positioned barrel. That remains worth it every single time.
Help!
Careful now. These are tight quarters for fighting in.
Shadow of Rome. Shadow of Rome is a game of extraordinary halves. The first half, where you play as Agrippa cutting through opponents in increasingly frenzied Colosseum battles, is some of the most kinetically satisfying combat you'll find in a 2005 game. Limbs separate, crowds erupt, weapons break, and need to be grabbed from the arena floor in real time. It's brutal, theatrical, completely committed to its own spectacular violence, made by the same studio that would later design the combat for the original Dead Rising. And then the game pivots. You switch to a stealth mode, playing as a young Caesar sneaking through corridors to uncover the political conspiracy that enslaved your closest friend. These sections are competent, they serve the narrative. They exist, they will never approach the energy of what surrounds them. The obvious explanation for why they're there is that the arena combat alone would have been too short. That explanation is almost certainly correct, but here's the thing. When you come back to Shadow of Rome, and you will come back if you've played it, you're coming back specifically for the arena. You load it up, you play through until it peaks, and you get out before the stealth sections bring you down. It's a highlight reel that passes as a full game. But what a highlight reel! And sometimes that's genuinely enough. Wolfenstein 2009. The Machine Games reboot eventually arrived and took everything this game did and rebuilt it into something far more accomplished in every measurable way. But Wolfenstein 2009 earns its place on this list for 2 reasons that have nothing to do with technical achievement. First, it's just an extremely entertaining, extremely brainless first-person shooter. The weapons are tuned in exactly the right direction, overtuned. You are disproportionately powerful. Enemies go down satisfyingly. The pacing keeps you moving forward with consistent momentum, and the whole thing never asks you to be anything other than a walking engine of destruction, clearing through Nazis with focused, cheerful efficiency. Second, and this is what makes it genuinely interesting, a remarkable amount of the mythology that powered the Machine Games reboots traces directly back to this entry. The new trilogy didn't sweep this game under the rug. It used it, pulled from it, treated its strange, pulpy ideas as legitimate foundation. There's something admirable about a franchise revival that doesn't pretend its messier chapters didn't exist. The open-world city sections between missions add welcome texture. The plot is mostly an excuse to keep moving, but moving through this game is reliably entertaining enough that no further justification is needed. Short, loud, and confidently stupid in exactly the right ways. A game that knows exactly what it is and has no interest in being anything else. Stuntman Ignition.
Action! Gap the cars.
There are games that entertain you, and then there are games that rewire your brain chemistry until the perfect run is the only thing you can think about. Stuntman Ignition belongs firmly in the second category, and whether that's a recommendation or a warning depends entirely on who you are. The concept is unlike almost anything else you'll find. You're a stunt driver running elaborate Hollywood set pieces, restarting over and over until every cue is hit at exactly the right moment, every corner taken at exactly the right speed, every explosion cleared with exactly the right timing. That's the whole game. No racing, no open world, just you and a track and the relentless pursuit of a score that reflects genuine mastery. It's hyper-specific, and that specificity is exactly why critics gave it the score they did. When you review a game this narrowly focused, you're rating it for an audience that might not include you. But for the people it's made for, and you'll know within the first 20 minutes whether you're one of them, this is as satisfying as anything on this list. There's something genuinely electric about nailing a sequence you've restarted a dozen times, about hitting every mark and watching the chaos unfold perfectly around you. It doesn't get old, not for the specific kind of person who finds their flow state in repetition. And those people will never stop loving this game.
Use action. Good turn right. Through the gap. Pass close to the car. Trip turn left. Trip turn right. Jump over the rubble. Trip turn right. Pass under the semi. Gap through the burning building. Trip turn left. Pass close to the car. Use action.
Cut. Rather good, actually. You're sure this is your first film?